My name is Giulio Superti-Furga, and I am currently the Scientific Director of the Center for Molecular Medicine of the Austrian Academy of Sciences in Vienna, in the middle of the hospital. I'm also the Scientific Director of the Fondazione Rimed, the Rimed Foundation in Palermo, Italy, and I'm the designated Director General of a very large new institute in Palermo that will start in a year and a half. And I was at EMBL first as a postdoctoral fellow in 1991 with Giulio Dretta. Then when Giulio moved on, I had the chance, a unique opportunity to stay on as what was called an independent staff scientist.
So what did you find surprising of the EMBL? You came in, I guess, from different experiences, and what did really catch your eyes at the beginning?
I immediately had the impression that the EMBL was a place where everybody could contribute. I mean, you never had a sense that your status will affect, if you want, your ability to say something or intervene at a meeting or be heard, which was amazing because even if I came from very nice places, I had been in the Institute for Molecular Biology in Zurich. It was a very well-run institute, rather small, or at the IMP in Vienna, where I was one of the, let's say, founding students. I realized that the EMBL, your nationality did not matter. I mean, you could really be coming from any place in the world, and you would feel at home.
And I mean, you were talking about this strong sense of community. So perhaps you can tell us what you were setting out to do scientifically and how this community helped you in succeeding in this.
Yeah, this is actually another typical EMBL story. So I came as the only or first molecular biologist in a lab that was run by a medical doctor, and that had more biochemists and cell biologists, but nobody who really had done cDNA libraries. So I came to try to see whether my molecular biology knowledge, creating, for example, human cDNA libraries that would be expressed in Schistosaccharomyces pombe, so fission yeast, and see whether you could use this to complement a lot of cell cycle mutants in fission yeast. Giulio Dretta, my supervisor, had just come back from Cold Spring Harbor, where he had cloned cyclin A in David Beach's lab, and the cell cycle was still in a very, very exciting phase of, knowledge explosion. And I did a lot of screens, and I worked like crazy the first year, and I had a lot of interesting results. But the ones that ended up being more interesting were due to a collaboration with the laboratory of Sarah Courtnage, who was also in the department of differentiation, it was called differentiation then. And it became clear that if we were expressing tyrosine kinases, cytoplasmic tyrosine kinases of the Sark family, for example, you would kill pombe. And you would kill pombe with a very specific phenotype. And obviously, this was just a readout because there is no significant tyrosine phosphorylation in yeast, so very unphysiological if you want. But it turns out that it was a perfect environment to study the regulation of these enzymes. And so in another place, maybe this would not have happened. At EMBL, I immediately started working together with the Courtnage lab, and I think these are the kind of things that then matured into many years, if not decades, of studying the regulation of tyrosine kinases because of this vicinity to another lab.
I mean, what really struck me is an element here that I see over and over. I mean, not only the serendipity of something maybe unexpected, but I guess the bold and enabling attitude to actually follow up on these. I think the example that you provided would have been probably an experiment that in another environment people would have said, well, leave it there. I mean, we don't really understand it. But then in an environment like this, it really leads to discovery. So perhaps another aspect is, did the technological development at EMBL help you and enable you to actually follow up on such observations?
Yes, I think that what you say is very true, Thomas. I mean, maybe this kind of serendipity things happen in other places. EMBL is a place where the freedom to be creative is fundamental. I mean, people expect you to be doing unexpected things, and that is magic almost. I mean, it's it's something that we keep trying to tell politicians or even policymakers, that if you plan science too much, right, you banalize its innovation potential. The innovation potential is almost always there where you don't quite expect it. So in a different place, you know, it would not have been on the grant, it would not have been something meaningful. In fact, nobody would have probably financed the kind of thing, but it became a very fruitful avenue, also because I would even call it budding, very, very hard science of bioinformatics at EMBL, together with a very strong tradition and interest in structural biology, was really providing wings to this project that started, if you want, almost like a genetics project, into something that became, if you want, a molecular regulation project at the three-dimensional level, because we were able to solve the structure together with Rick Vierenga's lab, or Rick Vierenga's lab solved the structure together with me. And that started a lot of more detailed knowledge about, and this is again something that probably otherwise would not have happened. It was so easy to get to meet the people. It's this community feeling at EMBL that is truly spectacular, and I think to this day should be and is its biggest advantage.
Yeah, so I can certainly relate to that, and on the way it's so easy to go across disciplines. But then the other aspect that I found interesting, and I actually remember from my time at EMBL when we overlap, is that you went through a phase in which you also scaled up a lot of your science. I mean, you were actually founding or among the founders of one of the first startups at EMBL. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit of the genesis of these. This was, I guess, you know, a quite interesting new thing also for EMBL.
I think so. I mean, I think this is it's one of those things that, again, I think would not have happened in a different environment. So the privilege of having, let's say, a small lab in such a great place was that you were inclined to collaborate a lot. And I had a lot of luck by being on the same floor with Rüdiger Klein, who had cloned the TRAC receptor tyrosine kinases when in Mariano Barbacid's lab. And then also with Angel Nebreda, who had worked a lot on regulatory kinases of the cell cycle, mostly using Xenopus laevis and its oocytes. And the three of us became quite confident that we were complementing each other's skills so that we would cover a lot of kinase and phosphorylation expertise. And that has made us think, okay, maybe we should do a company together. I mean, this was in 1998, 1999. And it was then that Fotis Kafatos, who was recently already since a few years, became the new director general of the EMBL. He brought the idea that maybe one should liaise with experts in biotech formation, and he brought in people he knew from the USA that were, let's say, scouting the EMBL for ideas. And this is where we met these people, and we felt a little bit like the little country mouse meeting, you know, the cousin in the city, because they were much more obviously eloquent and experienced and also experts. And so we decided to work together, and out of this came this opportunity. Now, I think that in a different environment, maybe I would have been able to contribute, but not enter the company. But Fotis allowed me to keep my lab at the EMBL as a sort of backup plan, but also to be sure that I was still linked to good science and start this company. And this was an incredibly interesting experience because it all happened on campus with the participation, with the skeptical but active participation of faculty. We had 7 founders. All of them came from the faculty of the EMBL. and it was, I would say, a community experience.
I remember actually that this came up very fast, and since there was no space at the EMBL, you guys had to outfit a lab in a sort of temporary structure to do experiment. This happened like in months, not really years. So I guess it's a testament to the efficiency also of EMBL in really pursuing new ideas.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I think that in any other place it would have been taken years of permits and so on and so forth. So this is another thing, is that EMBL has always maintained a good relationship with the city council and of course also with the federal state of Baden-Württemberg. And so it was very quick that we could get permission to take one of the parking lots and put in a little container city, and it was actually a company that came and over a weekend with a crane put up this Lego building blocks that then were screwed together to become the laboratory of this company. And it was, somebody has a video of it, it was really truly over a weekend that then this little building came up, modular building, and it was meant to be there for 12 months, perhaps 24 months, and then it was there for 20 years.
20 years. Amazing. I think, I suspect, but you'll tell me, that this was also sort of your entryway into a more closer relationship to translational science and medicine. So perhaps, we can discuss a little bit of, life after EMBL and maybe your role into this. And you can also reflect on, whether you try to you transfer some of the EMBL spirit to the new adventure.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is something that happens to everybody, right? I mean, you are enriched by the experiences you gain, and one element was really this community building that I've seen at EMBL. The two spirits, both the spirits of Lennart Philipson, that was a very familiar, very straightforward, hard science kind of spirit, and Fotis Kafatos, who brought this different level of sophistication coming from Harvard, is talking about inclusivity, talking about gender issues, talking about also things like commercialization, something that before we were not even concerned. And the making of this company called Celso, together with Gitte Neubauer and then the other people who really had an active role, was an exhilarating experience, because suddenly you were out of the golden, if you want, cage that is representing a beautiful, well-oiled machinery of research, and you have to decide on everything, from the logo to where do we get our garbage bins to, how shall we pay people, and so on and so forth. And within a year, we had hired 100 people, which gave us an incredible amount of experience into the organizing people, motivating them, teams, and so on and so forth. We had a fantastic, because of the reputation of the EMBL and because we were physically there, I think that we recruited people that were, each of them would have been able to run the show, and it was like an all-star team. And we had the luck of doing something that was really fundamental, important in research, because we were mapping the protein complexes of Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So, by any account, a very fundamental project. And this was also special times. It was the early 2000s. People had seen the power of genomics and omics. And we were, let's say, in a very, very privileged situation of seeing large-scale operation work. And it implied everything. We had to buy large centrifuges to centrifuge liters of yeast culture. We had to get these all-time stars, get organized in teams to do the work in a very reliable and reproducible way. It was incredibly, it was a period where every day you would learn what in other situations you would take you weeks. And we also had the chance, Gitte and I, to learn from the best, because I was not the CEO of this company, but I was the scientific director and head of site, and the CEO was in the States, essentially. So we were getting instructions by telephone, essentially, and then we were acting on our own, and that gave us a lot of responsibility. We were fairly young, but then we had to navigate a lot of things, from financing rounds to trying to obtain a deal with a pharmaceutical company partner to run first-class research and so on and so forth. That was the basis for everything I've done after. EMBL as a place where you've seen how it's important to have as few barriers as possible between people to collaborate. At the same time, knowing how a little bit of organization and structure can, make communities do wonderfully important things. The confidence of being able to, let's say, organize so many people. And when the opportunity came to start a new institute in Vienna, I had really literally neglected my family. I have an Austrian wife for enough long years to say at least I will continue to work in a fairly obsessive way, but at least the family would be in an environment where they have a bit more family support, and this is what happened. And so the Center for Molecular Medicine in Vienna did combine all of those things. It's a bit like a small EMBL with a medical orientation. And again, the mission was simple. It was saying, do curiosity-driven research, whatever comes to your mind, but this is the medical environment and this is reality. There are literally patients looking at us. We are a privileged little tower, beautifully. It was a beautiful institute. And so try to do the very best. And the very best is not derivative, the very best is innovation, but at the same time, try to be mindful of the medical need. And to this day, it works.
Yeah, no, and another aspect that I found very interesting, and perhaps is something that you're still practicing in Vienna, is that you started doing this work with Cellsome at the beginning of the genomics era, and I mean there has been always this gap between what you could sort of get from the in silico and the annotation to actually getting into functional science. And so I think with the East work and determining the complexes, this was one of the initial attempts to really get into the field of what then you could do with experiments. So I was wondering, do you still have a balance between large approaches to medically relevant project and maybe more top-down and translational approaches?
Yeah, you're perfectly right. It's exactly like this. We still do. If you want large scale, you can call them fishing expedition, but I would say it's more characterizing, let's say. For example, we are now, since years, trying to characterize all transporters, human transporters in the different cellular membranes. But at the same time, you have some cases where you drill down to the atomic level, try to understand exactly how it works. So I think that is another EMBL legacy, is the ability of, I would say, almost everybody at EMBL to zoom in and zoom out in projects. You're familiar with the importance and relevance of, let's say, interaction between atoms, between molecules, and you're not scared about understanding, the nature of the amino acid that you mutate and why and how you do it, while at the same time being able to think in the systems level way to, the ensemble of genes or proteins or modification of RNAs and so on and so forth. And I think that is, that if you want scalability and the ability to bridge the molecular world to the almost population work is now more than ever important, as we all know. And you call it integrative biology. In a way, it's also, if you want, complexity science, but it is clearly also this One Health vision where you are trying to understand things in relation. It's like a systems biology of the planet, and it's another EMBL legacy. It's a beauty about EMBL that we've seen everything. We've seen the establishment of some of the best bioinformatics, also predictive of, let's say, molecular features of genes as they are translated into proteins and protein interactions and interaction with chemical matter, chemical substances like Campbell and everything that has to do with that at EBI and also in Heidelberg. At the same time, seeing Tara Oceans and seeing Per Borg's microbiome world, or seeing, these large-scale approaches also at the imaging level. So technology is always kind of the limiting factor, and I think it's, that is something that we're still fully aware of. You're only as able to understand as the resolution of the tools that you are using.
So you mentioned at the beginning that you're starting a new adventure in your native Italy as a scientific director of a new institute in Palermo. So tell us perhaps a little bit about that. So what's your vision for that institute? Where are you going?
Yeah, this is an incredible bet, and it really has to become, as many other projects, a community project. This is not something one does alone. But I have this wonderful privilege to try to do this new institute close to Palermo in a place called Carini, that is between the airport and the city of Palermo. It's close to the seaside. It's in a beautiful location. What the institute is trying to do is to say, where is medically oriented molecular biology going into the next decades? And for sure, there are three elements that I think are very important. One is that this relationship between the human being and the environment is becoming more and more relevant. We are only as healthy as the environment that is around us, and that requires also a kind of new understanding of what we can do to the planet, else the planet does it to us, some sort of more healthy and fair relationship with it. Combined with what you could call, the realization that there is a lot that can be done now with artificial intelligence that before was not really feasible. From protein structure and interactions to, for sure, also decoding environmental, let's say, languages that epidemiology had been struggling to interpret. Because of the ability of AI, we think that will become more amenable. And last but not least, the understanding that while we are making gigantic progress on many systems, the heart, the skin, and so on and so forth, ultimately we will also we are making a lot of progress with the brain. And so a future of an institute that is going to tackle the relationship between humans and the environment in the view of the fact that we will also in future be able to understand how the environment in terms of education, in terms of stress, in terms of let's say, nice experiences, but also fear and anxiety shape us as human beings. So understanding really the role of the human species in a global sense and try to create a vision of a world that puts more harmony into this equation in a sustainable way, so that maybe also humankind will be able to be more peaceful as the resources are limited. And last but not least, I'm absolutely convinced that some of the solutions for humankind will have to come from regions that are traditionally bridging, if you want, cultural worlds. And you could call Sicily as the spearhead of a global north, but also, if you want, the first place in the global south. And traditionally, it has a lot to do with translating, if you want, Eastern and Western views of the world. So Sicily is a bit a hinge or a hub for a lot of, let's say, cultural innovation. It has been so for 3,000 years. So I see the future of this center in an island that is at the center of the Mediterranean, and again, at the center of what I believe is going to be a much more integrative way to understand the relationship between continents and populations. So it's an inspirational place, and I hope that many people will see that and will join us in Sicily and try to make a very innovative kind of research institute.
One thing that I found very interesting what you said is that we have to learn what is essentially sustainable. So this I found a great scope for science, right? We are becoming aware of our environment, we are becoming aware of climate change, we are becoming aware of the challenges in sustaining such a large population. So I wanted to ask you whether you are also thinking of communicating all the science that will come, because I think a lot of what we have to do is also educating the people that science tells us that it is the way to go, right? Not only providing solutions, but making, you know, the society essentially aware of the delicate balance. And you know, we are born into this world, we are not very aware of these things. So what is your vision for science dissemination?
So I think this is a fantastically important point, Thomas. I mean, particularly for a place that wants to be ambitious in terms of understanding a new relationship with the environment, needs to understand the environment not only as, you know, a few plants and swimming in the sea and eating pizza, but as a cultural integration with what is the reality of the people and the taxpayers that are supporting the science. So like many institutions, and again, EMBL here is perhaps at the forefront, we need to involve the people as much as possible. For example, there are the workers that are making the institutes that we are trying to keep in close collaboration with the institute from the very beginning. We had a beautiful exhibition of pictures of them on the construction site in the city called Carini, that is housing, if you want, the area where the institute is, and the classes and the schools there are very much involved in anticipating what we will do in terms of research. But in a global sense, I think that we can only, if you want, the transformative power of a research endeavor is quite proportional to how much it can penetrate and if you want, synergize with changes in society. So, medical behavior, but also environmental behavior needs to be pervasive. It has to be typically understood and supported by the population. And like most institutions, we are betting on schools. So we are trying to be very active with a lot of pupils in Palermo, but also in the other cities, and try to do that. And how to communicate this is something that we'll still have to, let's say, develop with social media, with videos, with ability of visiting the place and have an open lab where people can experience this. But we're also envisaging a new kind of tourism. We think that people from all over the world that will go to Sicily to see the temples or the beautiful Byzantine mosaics, or see the beautiful Baroque churches and swim in the sea and be very happy, will also be interested in getting to know more maybe about their well-being, about their nutrition, about their genes, about their own metabolism, and maybe stay close to the center in some sort of new kind of, let's say, welcoming hospitality industry, where they will be happy to have a lecture or two every day about things that they may not be too familiar with. So all of these things will contribute to try to bring science very close to people. But it always comes down to people. So we hope that we will convince quite a few people from all over the world to come and work there, because that will be the biggest, let's say, component of success is really the talent and the quality of the people.
Well, I mean, this is a great segue in my next question, because, one thing that you have been actually doing in the past, again for EMBL, when you left, was to be the chair of the Alumni Association. And the alumni are a large community of former EMBL scientists that are now all over the world. So, you were talking about talent. So, are you planning to still tap into this talent of the alumni to help you out? And what are your present day connection with the EMBL?
Yeah, I think I thank you for this question, because I am absolutely convinced that one of the biggest assets of EMBL is the incredible large number of wonderful people that are now all over the world. I mean, there are something like 10,000 alumni all over the world, getting more experience, getting in more important responsibilities, and covering a lot of ground, from policy making to working in pharmaceutical industry and so on. And you're right. I mean, this is one of the greatest. This is why I feel I can do this kind of things, is because I have these communities in the back. I'm not alone. I have this wonderful network, and I will tap it. Both the alumni of the EMBL, the alumni also of the Center for Molecular Medicine in Vienna, that is much, much smaller. It's less than, 3% of it, but it's already active. And I will definitely, and there will be many ways to do that, tap into that network to say, if you know of people that have this pioneering spirit and are happy to take risk and building a community in new ways, thinking out also new ways of organizing science, a way that is modern enough to capture the desires and the anxieties of a generation that has a different view of research. These people will be very, very important to help us, let's say, innovate and make a new kind of institute. So yes, the EMBL community of alumni will be fundamental, and I already hope and suspect that many people that will be pioneers in Sicily in this new endeavor will actually be somehow linked to the EMBL, or either first degree or second degree with the Alumni Association.
Well, as we are approaching the end of the interview, perhaps I'll ask you a few words, since you are this year recipient of the Lennart Philipson Award. I remember that you came in at the last part of Lennart Philipson tenure. So can you tell us something about this award?
I am, to start with, incredibly humbled and happy to receive this award, because this is a community that I really, really like, and I really feel a part of. So I feel very close to the communities I was a member of. But EMBL is special because it's truly planetary in its scope. And as I said, one feels at home here, almost like in no other place. And Lennart Philipson was a very fatherly figure. He was very tall. He was almost always with his pipe. He would often put his arm around you, easy for him because he was a giant, when you were talking to him, and you would like immediately confess, like in a Catholic priest kind of confession, because he would be pulling the right strings for you to say what's on your mind, and he would always give you very wise advice. It's a model that doesn't work anymore, right? I mean, the community is too large for this one-to-one kind of mentorship. But the few things I've asked him, and I think I suspect that people like me were seeking him also for futile reasons, just for the privilege of experiencing this. The award is wonderful because the ability to do something translational speaks to the robustness of the science that comes out of the EMBL. I think that is why the award is so important, is because it is never built out of fluke or let's say feeble kind of science. Is always built on strong science. My contributions to drug discovery, my contribution to building communities that did drug discovery, I was participant to making of 5 biotech companies, has really to do with the fact that it has to be done on very good science. And the second element being people. And so the very good science, EMBL quality science, and the very good people, EMBL quality people that are, let's say, innovative by nature, that are fearless and so on, is very, very important. And the Philipson Award is really recognizing those 2 elements.